Kings Island is one awesome theme park. They have one of the best coaster lineups in the country and seem to get frequent and expensive coaster additions from the Cedar Fair chain. With the B&M Surf Coaster still not built at any park, and Kings Island possibly getting a new coaster soon, could Kings Island be opening the very first B&M Surf Coaster? Join me as I explain why I think Kings Island might be getting the first B&M Surf Coaster. For over a year now, coaster enthusiasts have been speculating on the B&M Surf Coaster and what it could be. At first, many thought it may be B&M's take on a launch coaster or a 4D free spin. Others thought a second-generation stand-up coaster or flyer. We later found out that the surf coaster was a launch coaster when B&M filed a lien against SeaWorld during the pandemic. The lien described the coaster as a custom launch coaster. Everyone assumed it would be B&M's way of getting into the launch coaster market. Now, I think it is possible the B&M Surf Coaster isn't a launch coaster. The wording on the lien is custom launch coaster. A custom launch coaster can mean one of two things. One, SeaWorld Orlando ordered a custom surf coaster which happens to be a launch coaster. Or two, SeaWorld Orlando ordered a custom launch coaster which happens to be a surf coaster. The difference between the two options is option 1 would mean the surf coaster is a launch coaster, and option 2 would mean the surf coaster is a surf coaster that has the option of a launch, and SeaWorld Orlando went for that option. All this is really important when understanding why Kings Island might be getting the surf coaster. The coaster Josh talked one of the most about the B&M Surf Coaster and is well versed in the topic. He said he doesn't think the surf coaster will be B&M's take on the Intamin Blitz. He said he thinks it will be more of a graceful coaster. His reasoning being, he thinks B&M won't want to directly compete with Intamin and Vekoma making the exact type of coasters they make. I think that makes a lot of sense. If B&M were to make the same exact style coaster that Intamin and Vekoma are already doing, they need to do it much better and much cheaper. Also, we've never seen B&M copy other manufacturers' ride styles. B&M is usually one of the innovative manufacturers. So if the surf coaster isn't a copy of the Intamin Blitz, what is it? Is a surf coaster a graceful launch coaster? Personally, I could see that being the surf coaster, but I think there's another possibility. That option is that the surf coaster is a unique experience coaster that comes with a launch and maybe even the option of no launch. A unique experience coaster is any coaster that's not a traditional sit-down coaster. Some examples are the wing model, the invert, the flying model, the free spin model, etc. I really think it's more B&M style to make another unique experience coaster that goes well with the launch, rather than them just making a traditional launched sit-down coaster. Now, I know you are probably saying that if the surf coaster is a launched sit-down coaster, it will probably be a different experience than the sit-down model, possibly with only 2 riders in each row instead of 4, and a much faster layout with quick transitions. And though I think that's possible, I think a unique experience launch coaster is also possible. This all ties into Kings Island. To understand completely what's going on and whether Kings Island is getting a surf coaster, we need to understand what the surf coaster is. But first, please hit the like button, and if you're enjoying this video so far, I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe. Over 90% of you aren't subscribed, and I don't think you want to miss any of my future videos. I also really want to get to my goal of hitting 1,000 subscribers by July, so if you subscribed, thank you. Now back to the video. There are 3 options for the surf coaster. Either it's just a launch coaster, and I'm wrong about B&M not wanting to make a standard ride as their model of the decade, or the coaster is a new unique experience with the option of a launch, or the surf coaster is a unique experience coaster that comes with a launch. That will mean This unique experience would only be available with a launch. Now that I went through the Surf Coaster's possible options, it's time to look at why I think Kings Island might be getting one. For starters, Kings Island doesn't have any unique B&Ms besides the B&M invert, which is pretty common. Kings Island doesn't have a B&M dive, wing, or flyer. Kings Island also doesn't have a spinning coaster, and they really could use another unique experience coaster. Kings Island also has a great relationship with B&M. They got Diamondback, a B&M Hyper in 2009, Banshee, a B&M Invert 5 years later in 2014, and they got Orion, a B&M Giga coaster in 2020. That's 3 B&M coasters in 11 years. Kings Island also doesn't have any extreme or new launch coasters, and they could definitely use one. Kings Island has been getting coasters every 3 years since 2014, and 2023 would mark 3 years from Orion. Kings Island also recently closed Firehawk, their Vekoma Flying Dutchman in 2018, and Vortex, their Arrow custom looping coaster in 2019. With these 2 coasters gone, Kings Island may even go for a new coaster as early as 2022. Kings Island also recently added a new resort and may want to add a new roller coaster to drive people to the new accommodation. This would be another reason for Kings Island to get a new coaster in 2023. Now that I explained Kings Island and the Surf Coaster, it's time to put the pieces together. With all the things Kings Island is missing in their coaster lineup, the Surf Coaster seems to fit right in. Let me explain. Kings Island works really well with B&M, so why not get the brand new coaster model? Kings Island installed probably the most B&Ms from any park in the world in a short period of time. If any park in the world is almost guaranteed to get B&M's newest coaster model, it's Kings Island. Another reason Kings Island may be getting the Surf Coaster is now that they lost Firehawk, they are lacking a unique experience coaster other than their B&M invert. They also can really use a new style launch coaster, and with the Surf Coaster possibly being a unique experience launch coaster, it would be the perfect fit for Kings Island. Even if the Surf Coaster isn't a unique experience coaster and is just a regular launch coaster, it would still be perfect for Kings Island. Theme park predictions mention the fact that it seems Kings Island put grass seeds in Vortex's plot of land, which probably means a replacement isn't coming to that location soon. Which makes me wonder, could Kings Island get a massive launch surf coaster as a new front gate coaster? Having a launched B&M coaster at the front gate would be amazing, and Cedar Fair has been adding new front gate coasters a lot in the last few years. Nothing beats a B&M coaster as a front gate coaster, and I'll picture that with a launch and maybe another unique feature. Sounds like the perfect front gate coaster. Anyway, the B&M Surf Coaster is always well within Kings Island's budget. I mean, they just got a B&M Giga, so pretty much everything is on the table in terms of price. Kings Island also needs a new coaster soon after removing a coaster in 2019 and the fact that they just opened a new resort. It seems everything is in place for Kings Island to get a B&M Surf Coaster for 2022 or 2023. They work with B&M, they need a unique coaster experience, it's in their budget, and they are due for a coaster. But there's just one problem. Kings Island doesn't get prototypes. The Cedar Fair chain has yet to install a coaster never built before at Kings Island. All the models Kings Island got from Cedar Fair are standard coaster models, most of which have been around for decades. If SeaWorld Orlando gets the first surf coaster, then Cedar Fair would be a lot more likely to put it in Kings Island. If you watch my video on the status of Iron Gwazi, you probably know what I think. I think SeaWorld is trying to make a comeback in 2021, breaking attendance records solely from the fact that guests weren't able to experience theme parks for a while in 2020. I also think they will try to market their 2020 coasters as 2022 editions, opening them in late 2021 or early 2022. If SeaWorld does that, then SeaWorld Orlando's delayed 2020 coaster won't open until late 2021 or early 2022. That would mean the rumored B&M Surf Coaster would likely be pushed back to 2023 or later if not cancelled entirely. Kings Island is due for a coaster in 2022 or 2023, and if the first surf coaster doesn't open until 2023, then it probably won't be their next coaster unless they get the prototype. There's also a totally different possibility. What if Kings Island decided to go for a different B&M? Well, Cedar Point nearby has both the dive and wing, so those wouldn't be great options. A launch dive coaster probably wouldn't be possible or would be very expensive, and Holiday World already has a launched wing coaster. That leaves one other unique B&M coaster besides the surf coaster, the flying coaster. Cedar Fair still hasn't added a B&M flyer. We don't know the reason they didn't add a B&M flyer to any of their parks yet, but what if this whole time they were saving it for Kings Island? What if the surf coaster is a launch coaster with some sort of flying experience, and the reason Cedar Fair never purchased a flyer from B&M was because B&M was working on a second generation launched flyer? That would explain why Cedar Fair never added one, and why no park opened a B&M flyer since 2016. That would also increase the chances of Kings Island getting the surf coaster. But enough with the theories. So to conclude, is Kings Dominion getting the surf coaster? I think the answer to that question is a big yes. It's just a matter of when. If another park opens a prototype surf coaster in 2022, Kings Island may go for one in 2023. But if the surf coaster takes longer to be built, Kings Island may or may not go for building the first one. If Kings Island builds the first one, it will likely be in 2023 or maybe 2022. But if they don't build the first surf coaster and the first one doesn't get built in time for Kings Island to get it as their next coaster, I think Kings Island will opt for a totally different option. If Kings Island doesn't get a surf coaster, I think they will get a different coaster for 2022 or 2023 and the surf coaster for the 2025 season. Keep in mind it's very possible the first surf coaster doesn't open until 2024, in which case Kings Island could still be one of the first to get it. I honestly think Kings Island has a very high chance of getting the first, or for that matter any surf coaster in 2022 or 2023, but I could be totally wrong. Let me know your thoughts. Will SeaWorld Orlando get their surf coaster at all? What do you think of my idea of Kings Island getting a surf coaster?